Hey everyone, Luke here, and we're finally here. We're finally at the chapter where they land on the moon. Project Manga were right, like it only took them 2 chapters before we actually got them landing on the moon. So yeah, congratulations, they got that right, and yeah, really nothing else to say at this point. Let's just get in with it. I mean, I thought they would have been in space for a little bit longer, but it's just the way of things. So let's just dive right into the chapter. Okay, so this will be chapter 226, titled Giant Step. Now, that line will be made, that title will be made more apparent when we actually get to the point in the chapter, but for now, we'll just start with it. So it opens up with Kaku releasing the hatch, and we see Ryusui joining the team in space as we get the classic high five slap, and this slap is quite kind of important because this is the slap that's usually reserved for buddies of science, from way back when Chrome got one from Senku, Karsuki, Suika. They all got one from Senku, showcasing that, yep, you're my buddy. And back on Treasure Island, when they were like doing that high five buddies, and it's important for Stanley because it's now officially recognised them. Yeah, he's part of the team. He's part of the Kingdom of Science now. No longer trying to kill the man. This is made even more apparent because Stanley, we assume, was the one that actually shot Ryusui on in South America. So Ryusui was like, "Oh, you're trying to kill me, but it's all right. We're buddies now." And yeah, in mission control again. It's like, "Oh, how wonderful! After much ado, dear Ryusui made it into space after all." And Nikki's like, "Oh, as he put it, space is now it is." Yeah, that's our Ryusui. That's why we love him so much. And then Gen's like, "Oh, there is nothing coincidental about this." So he's like, "Yeah, there's really nothing coincidental about this. This was planned right from the beginning." And Francois agrees with them as we get them saying, even after his loss on the seat on the rocket, Master Ryusui definitely kept up with that demanded training. So it's nice that we actually get confirmation that yes, Ryusui was still training his body. So it's like, yeah, I may have lost my point, I may have lost my spot to Stanley, but I'm still gonna go. I'm still gonna go there. Like this is my dream. This is what I want. And yeah, even though it's more important for Stanley to go, it's what I want as well. And it actually makes more sense when you actually think about when you get to a point in the chapter. When he actually explains what his whole purpose was for actually going to space in the first place, we see that Ryusui has bought a new circuit board, which makes it more easy for Senku to like repair and get everything back up and running after it was damaged from that piece of hair in the last chapter. Now, this was a point that I was confused in the chapter because we see Ryusui talking. We see Sinu saying, "An elegant gift. No, we were able to overhear your predicament." So we see a flashback, or we see a flashback here of Ryusui and Kasuki, but it seems like it's not a flashback. And then we cut to Gen and Suika and Chelsea discussing that Ryusui went along for the ride after all, and then we have. And then we have Ryusui speaking to Senku. So it's like, is Gen in a flashback here, or with Suika and Chelsea? That just makes it even more confusing. And I'm not the only one who actually thought that. It was actually brought up on the Dr. Stone trivia where they said they found the timeline here pretty confusing because Gen seems to know that Ryusui went into space and then suddenly doesn't, and then the fifth part of the rocket appears to have gone connected without us seeing it yet. So I'm not the only one. And Pie Jams actually did bring it up that it seemed like a bit contradictory in the in our stream that again would actually be thinking like this. So yeah, it's glad that we were all on the same page and we were just as confused by just this paneling. But this is what the Dr. Stone trivia actually makes of it. I believe the correct reading is that from the last panel on page 3, it is a flashback to the time between the astronauts finding the electrical circuit and telling ground control, and the time before part 4 of the rocket launches. So it's basically the paneling is basically all a flashback to in between when they were like telling at the last chapter, like, oh, we've got a problem here, to when Ryusui was actually up in space. Does Thus gains confusion about Ryusui going in the first place, then immediately switching back to the present time. This is corroborated by the fact that Gen is in two completely separate locations, so it is possible that happened soon after watching the launch outside. So yeah, it was a bit of a confusing moment that I was confused on. I'm glad that I'm not the only one who thought that, because that was just like head scratching, like just like figuring out like what's going on here. Why is all this like dialogue happening when it shouldn't happening? So yeah, thank you, Dr. Stone Trivia, for being on the same page as I am. Going back to what we were saying here, now this was something that I didn't notice at first, and Pajum's got it brought up here. Ryusui has the Medusa and says, once petrified, I'll just be a piece of cargo, not an extra drain on last port resources. And Senku was like, yeah, it's going to be kind of cozy in here. And Sai's like running numbers again. There's plenty to recalculate. So this probably got confirmation. This probably confirms that Sai actually orchestrated the coordinates and mathematical combinations that got Ryusui into space in the first place. So we see the show being petrified. Now, I didn't notice this at first, so I'm glad that Party John's actually brought it up, because I seemed a little bit confused when we see a panel of Kohaku later in the chapter petrified. I was like, what? When did they petrify themselves? So glad that Party John's actually brought that up. Like, yeah, this was the point in the chapter where they actually petrified themselves for the 3 days that they're actually going to be traveling to the moon. Because I did actually put that into Google, like, how long would it take to travel from Earth to the moon, and it said 3 days. So yep, that's pretty accurate, and it makes it, and it's even more amazing considering the fact that Byakuya was in space for less time than Senku's been in space for more time than his father. Byakuya, according to Dr. Sotra, was in space for 17 hours, whereas Senku's now been in space for 3 days after this chapter. So congratulations, Senku, you've outdone your father. But anyway, we see ground control discussing that by transmitting radio waves between space and Earth, the ship's current position can be measured based on the transmission time. Those same waves are also coming with the double effect, which allows us to measure this ship's current speed. And Taiju's like, double like effect. So yeah, Taiju being having a coconut for a head. Yeah, that's our Taiju, and Chelsea explains what the double effect is as basic as possible. It's like, you know how an ambulance goes wee woo when it's racing towards you, but when it's moving away, it sounds like wow woo wow woo. That's the double effect. So yeah, the basic way to explain the double effect without going into a lengthy conversation about it. And they say position and speed, even with astronauts off in space, we can keep track of their movements. And again being the audience surrogate, it's like, those radio waves, useful little things, aren't they? Work for us in cells and microwave ovens too. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Cell phones, microwave ovens, computers as well. Yeah, radio waves are a handy little tool to have. And they continue on by saying, right now Senku and friends are going at 38 kilometers per hour. 38 kilometers per hour. And I actually want to find out what that is in miles. 38 kilometers in miles. So, well, they're not going. They're not going as fast as I thought they were. Like 23.6 miles per hour. Like, wow, that's not as fast as I thought it was for what they were saying here. Isn't it? Yeah, it says kilometers per hour. So yeah, 26 miles per hour. That's not as fast as I thought they were going, but whatever. Oh wait, did I actually put it in right? Let me. Sorry about this, guys. Just going off. I was putting in 38 kilometers per hour. Like, duh, Luke, you're an idiot here. You're like Taiju at that. So 38 23,000 kilometers to miles. Like, okay, here we go. Okay, yeah, 23,612 miles per hour. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So, sorry about that, guys. Easy mistake to make. So yeah, and Miami says even airplanes only fly about 1,000 kilometers per hour, and Sukasa says indeed spaceships are the fastest vehicles crafted by mankind. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense, that point, because space is vast and wide, so you need like the fastest ship to actually travel through it. Although this raises a concern for me about the final arc, the fact that we only have a select few in space, it making it harder for all the characters that Inagaki has created to actually kind of contribute to the final arc. And it seems weird that Suika and Chrome, the two people that actually designed this rocket, are not two of the people that have actually gone into space. That just seems weird for me. But hey ho, what can you do? So we cut to 3 days later as we see the petrification being undone. Now this raises a question for me, like exactly how much refined fluid do they have left? Because that's going to come up a little bit later in a theory that I have. Like, and it's scary to think that petrifying and unpetrifying, because there's got to be a limit in those watches of how much revived fluid they actually have. So after the 3 days are up and they've all been revived, we see Senku giving off a smirky grin, like, yeah, I'm finally here. But we have Kogi giving it a much more realistic reaction as she looks out of the window, and we see just how amazing the moon actually is, and that is a beautiful image of the moon. That is beautiful. And it just goes to show how just big the moon actually is. Like we only see it as a small image in the sky from Earth, but seeing it up close, like you really take in the sight and scenery of just like, this thing is huge, and compared to the and this is in comparison to the size of the spaceship, because it looks like, from the moon's perspective, a toothpick. That's how big the moon actually is. So yeah, we have them saying it's really the moon. Look at that. We're so close now. As we cut back down to Earth, as we get the sextant returning, basically the first, as Senku put it in the anime, Stone World GPS. So yeah, we get the Stone World GPS back again. Not seen since like the first arc of the series, or yeah, when they were facing Tsukasa for the first time. So yeah, nice to get some old technology way back from at the beginning of the series coming back into the finale here. So it's nice that we're getting that, and it's even more amazing that Chrome was the one who actually thought of this, and with Kimu saying the tool used for location went out at sea, and Chrome's like, yeah, damn right, they can also use it in space. By glancing at the stars, they can figure out the position. And Suika's like, yeah, this is one of Chrome's flashes of inspiration, but Chrome doesn't cut short, and he says, yeah, it's from me and Suika, the newbie science tag team. But of course, Sino comes in and ruins Chrome's moment, as everyone in the series does, likes to ruin Chrome's moment by saying an elegant low-tech solution employed by the early Apollo missions, and we get the falling back on the feet, and nice that Suika finally got that moment, the Chrome moment, as I like to go, when they're like, of course you already knew. So yeah, that's something from Suika I never thought I wanted, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad that Suika got that moment in the series. But yeah, this is actually kind of important here, as the Dr. Stone Trivia brought up, not Suika, C News comment here, especially once they reach the far side of the moon, as their communications with Earth will be cut off. At that point, they'll really rely on their own eyes and measurement to navigate through the looming void of space. So this raises the question: what if something does go wrong, up on the moon? They'll have to send somebody else up there to like think like, hey, what's going on? Like, there's got to be something that Whyman's probably been preparing for this for a while. Like, he's probably been anticipating, like, oh, they're actually coming to me at this point. No, I won't attack them now on the Earth. I'll wait for them to come to me, because he said in chapter 200, it was either chapter 200 or 201, where he said, where he had that ominous message of, do you want to die? So like, this might actually come into play, that message. But yeah, the Dr. Stone Trivia actually brought something like this up. If I can bring it up. Dr. Stone Trivia, let's get you back up. Because this was something I don't think me and Pyjam's actually thought about, but it does raise a lot of questions, yeah, here it is. Radio waves can't go through the moon, so the astronauts will lose communication with Earth on the far side, so like on the dark side of the moon. Let's just call it the dark side of the moon. This begs the question of how Whyman's own radio signals reach the Earth if really located on the far side. A separate antenna would be needed on the near side for this. Yeah, so that raises the question of like how exactly the radio waves were getting to Earth, or begs the even question: how were the Medusas getting to Earth? If the Whyman's base is on the far side of the moon, like facing away from the Earth, like how did the Medusas actually fly through the vacuum of space to actually get to the moon, to actually get to the Earth? That begs the question of that front. So if anyone's got any ideas, Pyjams, if you've got an idea, let me know in the comments. As Kaku is looking out at the moon itself, she sees a large crater, which the Dr. Stone Trivia doesn't reckon that this is the crater that she actually saw, which would contain the Whyman's location, because that crater, that image was like changing shape all the time when we first saw it, and they actually brought up a point to actually bring that up, like, yeah, this is constantly changing shape at this point. And she says the back of the moon is all bumpy and lump. Now the fact that we see a shadow here on the moon, that makes me believe like the Whyman's got to be located in that particular area. Now we don't know the exact location of Whyman. We have an idea, we have a vague idea, but we don't know like where they're actually located, whether they're actually in one of the craters, which might actually be in the next few chapters. Like we're doing a reconnaissance of the moon to actually go through all these craters to find out what exactly is going on, as the Whyman got stuff out on the surface of the moon, as he got something under the moon. Like what is actually like, if they don't go under the moon, like under the moon itself, like that would be a missed opportunity on Inagaki's part. Like that, because they could have easily just scoured the surface of the moon for days and be like, oh, there is a base on the moon, like you can see it like right on the moon's surface. So the fact that it has to be in one of the craters and probably even down in like a bunker on the moon, that would make the most sense. So like, because my man would probably be like, oh, okay, if people try to come up here and find me, yeah, it might make more sense if we could actually just have a bunker under the moon so that nobody can find me, and like whatever that shape was that they found on that image, like that just means to be another mystery that needs to be solved, like why that shape was constantly changing when they actually saw it pixelated on the images that they got from the satellite that they built. But yeah, Senku says like we'll always see the same side of of the moon from the Earth, and the backside. The backside's an ugly mess because of the fact that meteorites have been crashing into the moon, and basically the moon's being used as like an Earth shield to protect us from meteorites constantly crashing into the Earth and like just decimating the entire planet. And this is where Kaku brings up a poignant point when she says, so even without us knowing, the moon has been protecting the people of the Earth, which got Pyjams thinking like maybe that's what the Whyman's motive is to protect the people of the Earth. But and I could see that like being one of the motives of the Whyman. Like the Whyman wants to protect the people of the Earth, but humanity over the years has kind of like corrupted itself. So it's kind of like messing with its like mind and thinking like, okay, so if mankind's not going to protect itself while alive, then I'm just going to encase them in stone and protect them in that way. So like destroying humanity, but doing it for like a greater good, so like humanity doesn't destroy itself. Maybe that's the main motive of the whyman. Who knows? So continuing on, Ryusui says, now regarding which of us will step foot on that guardian deity, just in case the trip goes sideways and turns into a one-way suicide mission. The plan was to only send three folks in the lunar lander. As the science guy, I should. But Senku say like, oh, as the science guy, I should hang back in the command model. And before Ryusui cuts him off and says, nope, the command model is mine. You're here representing the scientists of our new star world. So you, Senku, will be the one to walk on the moon. And everyone's just like freaking out by this, like, what? Why Senku? Why not you? And Kawaku actually brings up the point of like, wouldn't Ryusui actually desire to be the one to step foot on the moon? And he's like, I'm a captain first and foremost. Three will walk on the moon while one steers the ship. So yeah, makes the perfect sense why Ryusui came up here, because if something bad actually happens, then he could always like be like, okay, something bad has happened down here. I could go and help out them out. Although this raises the question of like, if they do step foot on the moon and they're like, okay, whyman spots them and like, okay, they're out there, petrify the whole moon, or just petrify the moon and the vacuum of space, then that will leave them in complete crap then, which will probably lead to the ground control be like, okay, we need to go up there and help them, and then being freaking out like, what if whyman petrifies us? And then they'll have to probably come up with another plan to actually combat whyman. Like I like this series could like the things that I'm coming up with could potentially make it so that the series actually goes to chapters 300. Like, I'm being realistic here, and I'm saying chapter 250. Right, between chapter 250 and 260, that'll probably be when the series ends. Which means we've still got like about half a year of Dr. Stone left. Like, June will probably be when it ends, but we'll just have to wait and see that front, because there's so much that could go wrong, which will actually extend the series a bit more. But yeah, Ryusui continues on and says like, sure, I'd love to play the role, but if I got on the choice, I'd take the more elusive trophy. Am I wrong? Like the trophy of like, yeah, I'm the commander of the first spaceship of the Stone World. Like, yeah, that would be probably used. That's reused. Like, he'd be more interested in being like, yeah, I'm the Grand Commander Captain of the new Stone World spaceship. So yeah, that's Ryusui. And Senku agrees with him and is like, yeah, let's just take it like that, as we see the capsule, the lunar lander, being launched down to the moon, and again, just seeing the craters up close to the moon. That's just like a breathtaking image from Boichi. So he's really putting out the stops now to make this like as stunning spectacle as possible, and I cannot wait to see these be animated in the anime. As we see the capsule starting to land, we see Gen coming up with the idea of like, hey, what's going to be the first words to say when they step out onto the moon? Kind of referring back to when the Apollo 11 first stepped on the moon, and we had Neil Armstrong going, it's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. And that's the reference to the title of the chapter, because that's actually going to come up, what Neil Armstrong's words that were actually said. Before we see a scientist who we have seen before, this one here, we've seen him in one of the flashbacks with Senku when he was in Africa, which Pijam's actually brought up, because I didn't pay attention to him, but it's like, oh yeah, that is the same scientist, obviously a bit older, which makes a lot more sense, because Senku was a bit younger in that flashback, but now they're both a little bit older, so that makes most sense. But somebody was like disappointed that fact that, because they were from Africa, and they tease us like, Africa's back up and running. I'm like, we didn't even get Diamond City. We didn't get Diamond City for the Medusas, but I'm more annoyed that they teased us with Europe, and I thought they were going to go to England. But hey ho, what can you do? But yeah, Taiju's like, oh, I've just got a flash of inspiration. It's the perfect line to say. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. So that's the reference to the title of the chapter. But yeah, kind of amazing on Taiju's part, for despite having a coconut brain, he still remembers that famous phrase, which which isn't hard to do, but for someone like Taiju who only has like 3 things that register with him, like Yuzuriya, Senku, and farming. I mean, I'm sure there's more things that register with Taiju, but yeah, those are the 3 main things, and he probably doesn't even think about like phrases like that most of the time, which makes sense. Like he thinks like, oh, it's a bad phrase of it, it's a bad phrase of inspiration, but it's probably something he subconsciously remembered and he just kind of forgot about it, which makes sense. I mean, there's like a lot of things that happen, like I'm sure like it's the same thing in Japan, where it's like, oh, people in Japan obviously know of One Piece even if they've never actually seen an episode. It's kind of the same thing here, like people all around the world know that phrase and know it very well, but they've probably just not realized where it actually comes from. And this way again, and Chrome actually thinks like it's the coolest thing ever before Ged actually says like, oh yeah, this was what Neil Armstrong said when he first landed on the moon. And this gets Taiju just like getting really depressed. But hey, Taiju, you at least remembered it, so congratulations at that point. And this is where we get everybody giving their phrases. Like Chrome gives his most cliched thing, the moon's bad, because yep, that's Chrome. And we see Kurosami and Mosu for the first time in like since the 190s chapters, because the Dot Tree actually brought up where they actually came, and the last time we saw them was in the between chapters 190 and 200. So yeah, first time we've seen them in a while, and like he said, let's hope this is not their last appearance. Let's hope they actually do something. Let's hope all the characters that we've met actually do something. So yeah, Mosu says, now recruiting girlfriends, Cutie's welcome, and Kurosami's like, why do I put... Kurosami's just like there, just like dot, and she's like, why have I put up with you for so long, Mosu? That's probably what she's thinking. And Sai gives probably the most logical answer, achievement unlocked, first moon landing, which is probably a wink to the audience of like when they do those panels of like Clover and Shelton's acquired, like cell phone acquired, but that would be more on the nose if it was that, and it probably would have taken away from the illusion. And Ukiyo's just like, is this turning into some kind of improv? Like they're not even trying at this point. And again, as Senku is like, I suppose this will be up to our dear astronaut. And Senku's like, no, never even thought about it for even a second. Which, yeah, that makes sense for Senku, but come on, Senku, you're going to be landing on the moon, so come on, at least say something. But of course, the Dotso Trivia brought up something here where they said, oh, if you haven't, they think like it should be, of course you haven't. So maybe Caleb couldn't actually fit it in. We just don't know. So that might just be something that they'll actually correct when we actually get the volumes out. So we have Senku actually thinking like, okay, yeah, I better say something here. As he says, that said, compared to the landings in the 21st century, our lunar mission is meaningful in a whole different way. If we fail to beat Whyman, humanity is doomed. Should we triumph over Whyman, the secrets of petrification are ours. With humanity on the line, we're taking this first giant step into the battle for the future of science. So get excited as we see Senku finally landing on the moon, and that's where the chapter ends. So not as grand as the last chapter, but pretty important because we're finally here. We're finally at the moon. Like, it's taken nearly 100 chapters to get here. Like, the announcement was in chapter 139, and now we're in chapter 226. So it's been like 85 like let me 49, 59, 69, 79, 89, 99, 209, 219, 219. So 220, 221, 222, 223, 2024, 220. So 87 chapters since they announced that they were going to moon. So it's been 2 years since that announcement. I'm pretty sure, yeah, more than certain it's been 2 years since that announcement, or at the very least a year and a half. So yeah, very grand and very epic that we're finally here now. Now, what will happen next? I assume Whyman is prepared for this. Like, there's no way Whyman has not gone throughout this whole series like being like, oh, I'm just gonna let them come in, barge in, find out where I am, and then deal with me and then bugger off. Yeah, Whyman's gonna have some challenges ready and waiting for them, and it's probably gonna be a while before we see Whyman. Like, I'm saying 6 chapters because literally in 6 chapters that'll be the 5th year anniversary. So if the 5th year anniversary chapter is when they actually meet Whyman, that'll be perfect. like 5 years, we finally get to see 5 years, and probably 3 years after he was first introduced, we finally get to see what Whyman actually is. Which, if that's the case, that would be amazing. Like, I'm fairly certain that it's been 3 years, or at least 2.5 at the bare minimum since we met Whyman. So yeah, getting close to 3 years, we finally get to find out what this thing actually is, and I am hyped as hell for this because I've been waiting so long for this moment. It's basically the Doctor Stone equivalent of finding the One Piece. Like, we're finally finding out what the Whyman actually is now. Various theories being thrown around. AI, I've thrown out the theory of, like, it's a computer that's had their brain digitized, and it might actually be a human AI hybrid. Who knows? Like, I like the idea of AI human hybrid, like the human had its brain digitized and became an AI but still retained its human body. That could probably be the Whyman, and the why is probably a reference to, why have humanity done this to me? That could be the reference that it's going with here, which would make it a very fascinating thing to actually get in contact with and actually have a proper conversation with. So we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, guys, what did you think of this chapter? Let me know. Like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And this will be Lasherluke signing off. Later, guys.